Have you ever wondered how or why some private servers have all blue lights or all red lights? Have you noticed that in some servers, night seems to be never ending? And have you noticed that in most private servers, fires can be a little larger than normal? Well, today, not only am I going to share with you the best kept private server secrets, but I'm also going to share with you the best settings for your private server to ensure all players have a lag-free experience and your server runs as best as possible. This is going to be a quick down and dirty video for anyone that's either starting their server, has a server, and wants to improve the quality of their server, or maybe even fellow YouTubers that want to understand how I tweak my private server and really use some of these settings to bring what I believe some quality content to the platform. First things first, a lot of people don't know this, is that if you are a private server owner, you do have additional settings. The settings can be found right by the menu in this sort of faded black font that says click here for more information. This particular menu is available to anyone in a private server, but if you are in fact the owner, you should be able to see the edit server settings. This is where you're going to access the back end of your server. Now, to address some of the very basic and some of the very common ones, how do we change the lighting? Well, that's very straightforward. In the premium settings pack, you should be able to see sheriff vehicle ELS and police vehicle ELS. So if you want your sheriffs to be all blues and maybe your police to be all reds, or maybe even vice versa, you have the opportunity to change those settings here in the premium settings pack, okay? Don't forget, premium settings pack. Okay, so with the simple one out of the way, let's now talk about the length of day. Yes, private server owners do have the ability to control how long or how short the day is going to be. And if you look at my settings right now, I have 999998989, whatever that number is. I have basically the longest string of characters I could possibly type in, and that's because I prefer to 100% shoot during the daylight. In fact, if you go visit my channel, you'll notice that the vast majority of my thumbnails are all in a daylight background as opposed to a nighttime background. I don't know if there's a psychology behind this or not, but my daytime thumbnails tend to perform 100 times better than any of my nighttime thumbnails. I don't understand it. It is what it is. But for creators or just anyone that owns a server, if you're trying to control the length of day, this is the way to do it. And this is why in some private servers, it'll always be nighttime no matter how long you stay in that server. A very, very common question I get is, how do you use the camera the way I do when I do some of my B-roll or when I'm simply shooting some gameplay? And that answer is simple: freecam. Not every server is going to have this setting enabled. I know I have it enabled in my private server. This is how I get some of the angles for my thumbnails. This is how I'm able to recreate some scenarios. And this is how I'm basically able to capture anything I want to capture thanks to the use of freecam. Freecam is an absolute godsend, but it is a little buggy, and I'll give you guys an example of this. Sometimes I log in with the setting already enabled, and even if I hold Shift P, which is the toggle to enable freecam, it won't let me go into freecam. I have to go in, reset my character, and it is then that I will be able to use freecam. Another bug with freecam is that no matter where you're at in the map, if you go beyond the point of where you're at, and here we go, this is going to be a perfect example. Once you pass your immediate area, nothing else is going to be loaded. I don't understand why. Maybe it just needs time to render. Maybe my character needs to travel through those areas to actually render those environments. I don't know, and I don't understand it. And to be honest, I don't even know if I should be calling this a bug or not, because I don't think it is. To prove to you that this is not on my end, I work off of a Radeon 6900 XT and I get the same problems. Right now, I am working off of an RX 580 and I am getting the same issue, and my settings are manually controlled and set all the way to the highest possible setting, and I am still encountering this issue where I cannot see the rest of the map if my character has not traveled through this environment. And now, to put this into context, I'm going to drive just a little bit past the shopping center where the jewelry store is at, maybe right in between this building and just enough to where I can see the sheriff's station, and now everything over to maybe even the first row of the housing track should render for me. You guys see that? That's how I can get buildings to render, but everything outside of this area will not render. And yes, just as predicted, everything after the first row of the housing track is not rendering for me. So if you guys know what causes this, let me know in the comments below, because quite frankly, I do not. And this is probably the only thing that takes up some of my time to shoot some of the B-roll sometimes, but it's not a big deal. I've learned to work around it, and now I have plenty of B-roll saved up, especially when there's no special event going on. Another great setting in the premium settings pack is the fire size. This is how I'm able to capture some of the thumbnails when I play as a firefighter or EMS. You can make the fire as big or as little as you want it to be. There is a caveat here: increasing the multiplier may result in performance issues, so keep that in mind. We're going to talk about this a little later in the video when I share with you the best settings for a private server, but just know that this is why in some servers you'll find really small fires, and in other servers, you'll have massive fires that are just out of control, like in one of my most recent videos. Other settings recently introduced is the glass shatter timer, which is by default 30 seconds. You can really make this anything you want. Anywhere between 30 to 60 seconds is pretty good. This next one, voice chat only, was recently introduced, and I don't know that too many people know about it. I wish that more people would, or more server owners would. That way they could quit trying to get people over on the Discord, though I understand why some people want to get people on Discord, but just know that if you don't have Discord, like I know some of you don't, there's really no need for that if the server owner is just willing to go on the back end and enable voice chat only. I know that may eliminate a lot of players, but I think this is a better alternative than having to log in into a secondary system, go through the verification process, and do all of that jazz instead of just enabling the feature here. I digress, let's move on. Player gun damage and vehicle gun damage are great ones as well, and this is why in some servers you can die very quickly, and in others you can basically absorb a million rounds and not die. So these are great settings, but I won't talk about those too much right now either. Over to the pro server pack, the server icon is really the one that matters and really the one that most private server owners use. This is what allows us to customize our avatar when you're scrolling through the private server list. The custom livery pack is self-explanatory. I'm not going to go through this. If you guys are interested in custom liveries, go check out my video where I teach you how to make a custom livery from scratch, and I prove to you that you don't need to have any kind of magical skill or any kind of fancy photo editing software. You can do it all for free as long as you have the custom livery pack. The role-playing pack is where things get interesting. This is where you can give the ability to customize the helmet, whether or not civilians are going to be arrested, how combat mode is enabled, whether or not any vehicle can be towed, pitting vehicles, friendly fire, custom uniforms, and additional features involving the mod help command line. These are pretty simple yes or no questions, and whether or not you want the setting enabled like this one, towing any civilian vehicle, this setting determines whether or not DOT will be able to impound any civilian vehicle regardless if the civilian has been arrested or not. If enabled, any civilian vehicle can be impounded. You guys get it. I'm not going to go into the fine details. Now, I am going to share with you some of the best settings that you can possibly use to ensure that everyone has smooth gameplay and that your server is as lag-free as possible. First things first, obviously you want to have a catchy name. Right now, my server name is nothing but Zany YT Roleplay, and that's it. This doesn't really matter, and it really shouldn't affect the gameplay until you get to the max players. You can't set any number between 2 and 30, and if you can swing it, I highly recommend that you do 30. But if you're having performance issues, or you know that your internet's a little bit slow and you're not going to be pinging at the right rate, maybe consider reducing this down to 15 to 20. And since we're running into automatic fires, we're just going to talk about fires right now. If you're having serious performance issues, just turn off automatic fires. Don't worry, this does not mean that you cannot start a fire. You can simply reference your commands list. Understand that if you want to start a fire, the command is start fire, and then you can dictate whether it's going to be a house, building, or brush fire. So just because you turn off that setting does not mean that you cannot start fires. This just lets you manually control when the fires are started in your private server. And I can't emphasize enough, if you're having performance issues, turn this off and just do it on your own. And speaking of fires, I never recommend that you put the number all the way up to 9, just like I did. I was doing this for the sake of a thumbnail, but once again, if you're having some serious performance issues, just leave this number at 1. You'll get a very basic fire, maybe like one tree or the corner of one building, but that's it. Your EMS and firefighters will still be able to respond accordingly. They'll still get the XP. Not that it matters in a private server, but regardless, you get what I'm saying. They're still going to have the opportunity to engage and interact without overwhelming your little private server. Another setting that is often overlooked is the glass shatter timer. If you're having some performance issues, or maybe your server is just running a little bit slow, keep this number anywhere between 30 and 60. Trust me, I know what I'm telling you. And the last few recommendations for smooth private server roleplay is actually in the roleplay pack itself. If you're still having some performance issues, or maybe it's just running a little bit slow, go in here and disable every single one of these settings to include the friendly fire, the pit vehicles, the towing any vehicle. Just disable all of these features. Yes, the gameplay is going to be very mute and very monotone, and chances are you might lose a little bit of your audience, but trust me, this is going to make your server run pretty darn smooth. And before I forget, I sort of skipped over it because we just went in to talk about fires, but traffic cameras make you wanted. Turn this server off as well. If you're having some issues, or if you just don't care, turn this setting off, and this will make your server run just a little bit more smoothly. Alright, you guys, well, those are some of the secrets that you often don't see if you don't own a private server, or if you don't play in private servers, and I hope this helps anyone and everyone trying to start their own private server. Let me know if you have any additional recommendations down in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, long live the Zanies.